Hey Canucks fans, welcome to Clay's Canucks commentary for Friday, March the 22nd. I'm Clay Emo, I'm at Canuck Clay on Twitter, I'm at Clay Emo on Instagram. I'm the founder of the GLCPC, the Good Looking Canucks Positivity Club, and this is my Canucks take, all in one take. The Canucks are still only 4 points out of that last wildcard spot. The Coyotes lost yesterday, Colorado won, but Chicago lost, so in essence, no one made increase that 4 point gap over the Canucks. Now actually two teams are 4 points up on the Canucks. That would be both Arizona and Colorado, and Chicago's in between. Then there's Vancouver and Edmonton right behind us. So Canucks still have a chance to make some progress, make some hay tomorrow night as they host the Calgary Flames. I'll be going to that game with my new Twitter friend Dan and looking forward to that. He's got really sweet seats actually, sitting in row 3 behind one of the benches. So I can't wait for that. But I'll talk about that more tomorrow. Today I want to talk about the Canucks practicing in preparation for that Calgary game. Remember, the Canucks have won 3, actually they've won 4 of their last 5, I think, as they prepare to host Calgary and then Columbus on a back-to-back at home. So massive weekend. I've talked about the ramifications. Obviously, the Canucks need to get all 4 points, 3 at the very minimum, but it'd be great to get all 4 if they want to stay in this playoff hunt, keep their very slim playoff chances alive. They were practicing at UBC today. Almost a full crew, except for Ben Hutton and Quinn Hughes. So let's talk about Quinn Hughes. It looks like he'll be skating soon. Travis Green shared the news that his CT scan came back negative. That means positive news in that there's nothing broken or fractured, just a deep bruise. And Travis Green said that Quinn Hughes will be skating soon. So whatever that means, maybe that means tomorrow, maybe that means after Sunday, whatever it may be. So I don't expect him to play. As much as I love to see him play at home Saturday, Sunday, because those are the games I'm going to, it might not be until next week. And I put a poll up yesterday talking about Quinn Hughes, saying basically what would be the minimum number of games that you'd like to see him play for it to be worth it, however you want to define worth it. And the majority of you said 4 to 5 games would be great. That would be right on track if he ends up starting to play next week. He could get into a maximum of 6, but likely 4 or 5 games might actually be right about where he ends up. And remember that Adam Gaudette played 5 games last year. I think Brock Besser played 9 games the year before. So the Canucks are not afraid to play guys for 10 or fewer games to wind up the season. So that's good news on Quinn Hughes, about as good as we can expect. The fact that he will be skating soon, it just means he probably won't be, we know he won't be in the lineup tomorrow night. That would be too much too soon for a guy who hasn't skated in a couple of weeks. So that's for Quinn Hughes. And when we talk about the, only 8 games left for the Canucks, you kind of wonder what, if it's the last time we're going to see some of these players in the lineup when they get in the lineup. Derek Pouliot, who's been a healthy scratch, he's an RFA. Ben Hutton's an RFA, but we know that they're likely going to extend or sign him. Well, they should, I think. Then up front, Nikolai Godovin's an RFA. Is he going to play anymore? He's been scratched recently. Marcus Granlund's an RFA. And there's Josh Levo, who I think they will sign. He's having a really good year. Tyler Mott having a decent year, and of course Brock Besser they have to sign. And that's kind of a no-brainer. Thatcher Demko also an RFA, but I'm sure he will get extended as well. So that's another storyline to look at over the next 3 weeks. The last 3 weeks of the season is what's going to happen with the Canucks RFAs. They have at least 8 or 9 on the roster right now. So let's talk about someone who's not an RFA, but someone who's ready to play. The question is he going to play? And that is Sven Baertschi. We know that he's had many concussions over his career, unfortunately, I think 4 or 5. And his most recent setback was concussion related, but it wasn't because of a direct hit. It was aftermath or the symptoms of having his most recent concussion. But he's been practicing. He's cleared for contact. He's cleared to play. He's met the media today for a few minutes and talked about that it was tough, that he was tentative back in January, but he is ready to go. So my question to you Canucks fans is, do you think Sven Baertschi, do you think they should put him in the lineup tomorrow night? And usually you think the answer is a no-brainer. Of course, he's arguably your most skilled forward behind Brock Besser. I'd say he has more skill than, or at least equal to Eriksson, Pearson, Virtanen, and he's been very consistent for the Canucks over the past few years when he's been healthy. Unfortunately, he hasn't been healthy. But would you put him in? Or would you say, no, the Canucks have won 4 of the last 5. They're battling for a playoff spot. And, there's been a lot of chemistry, at least on the top 2 lines. Where would you slot him in? So I put a poll up like I usually do. I put it up an hour ago. It's got over 100 votes. And I simply said, now that Sven Baertschi has declared himself and is medically cleared to play, would you put him in the Canucks lineup tomorrow night? And if so, with who? So I get 4 choices. Would you put him with Bo Horvat on the top line? Would you put him with Pettersson and Besser replacing Levo on the second line? Would you put him on the third line with Gaudette and Virtanen? Or would you decide to sit him out completely? And, of the 100 votes so far in only an hour, the runaway leader right now is play him with Bo Horvat at 54%. Then you have another 16 or 17% saying play him with Pettersson and Brock. Another 16 or 17% saying don't even play him at all. And then only 10% or so, I think the math adds up, 10 or 12% saying play him on the third line, which I think is what you should do. And I'll talk about the other, I'll do process of elimination. I would put him in the lineup because of who I would replace, who I would be replacing. That would be Marcus Granlund, which I'll get to in a second. So that's not an option for me. He's one of your best forwards. I would put Sven Baertschi in and see how he does. Would I put him on the top line? I could see why 54% said put him with Bo. That's generally who Baertschi has played with over the past few years here. They've had great chemistry before. Horvat's always been looking for consistent, skilled wingers, and we've talked many times about his revolving cast of characters as line mates this season. So if this was the start of the season, I would say yes. If the Canucks hadn't been winning recently, I would say yes. But right now, I wouldn't break up that line of Horvat, Eriksson, and Pearson, given that they combined for 10 points in the last win over Ottawa. Yes, it was Ottawa, but it's still 10 points. And given that, Pearson and Eriksson, they have little hot streaks going 5 points each, 5 points in the last 5 for Pearson, 5 in the last 3 for Eriksson, and Horvat's had 9 points in his last 6 games. So I wouldn't really break that line up yet right now. Let's see if they can build on what they did in Ottawa. And then for the second line, the so-called second line, Pettersson, Besser, and Levo, you could put Baertschi with Pettersson and Besser, and then they become even more skilled. But then you lose that element of Levo, who's got a heavy shot, decent skater, decent hands, but really clears a lot of space for Pettersson and Besser, especially along the boards in front of the net. And Levo hasn't been rewarded with the same amount of point totals that Pettersson and Besser have, but he's still an integral part of the line. And it's not a surprise that Pettersson and Besser have been playing very well in the last 3 to 5 games, and that's because a lot of that has been with Josh Levo. So I wouldn't put Sven Baertschi there on the second line either. Where I would put him is on the third line. I like the combination of Gaudette and Virtanen. Virtanen scored a goal last game against Ottawa. Gaudette's playing well. They get buried in their own zone once in a while, but there are obviously a bunch of young guys in there with Gaudette and Virtanen. I like those two together. I think you could put Sven Baertschi on their left side and replace Marcus Granlund. Granlund, I'm not the biggest fan, like I said before. Yes, I know Green likes his versatility up and down the lineup. But up and down the lineup, doing what, though? Just being there kind of thing. Whereas I think Baertschi is much more skilled. He's much more dangerous. He's much more creative. And he could actually... Gaudette and Virtanen, we've seen that they have offensive flair at times. And I think you put him with a skilled forward like Baertschi, that they could even thrive a bit more. And Gaudette and Virtanen are not small guys. They're on the bigger side. So I'm not worried that Baertschi's too small or whatever with those guys. I think that line would be fine. So then you look across the top 3 lines now. Horvat and Pearson, they're not the biggest guys there, but they're stocky enough, right? They play a decent size. And you got Levo on the second line, and you still have Virtanen on the third line. So I like that mix. So if it were me, I would put Sven Baertschi into the lineup tomorrow night against Calgary in a must-win game, basically. I put him on the third line. I don't think that's bad. I think he would just be happy to play, not only for what he can bring to that third line, but also you don't want to disrupt the chemistry of the top 2 lines. That's what I would do. Leave a comment below, Canucks fans. I'd love to know what you do with Sven Baertschi tomorrow. Would you play him? If you did play him, who would you play him with? And if you didn't play him, tell me why. And is it a chemistry thing, or are you worried about his injuries? So as the Canucks enter this weekend, I've said before, of their last 8 games, 16 points, they probably need to get 13 or 14 of those points to have a shot at making the playoffs, a long shot as it is. And that means there's only room for 2 losses, and likely one regulation loss and maybe 1 extra time loss. So it's going to be very, very tricky, but stranger things have happened. Maybe not for the Canucks, but stranger things have happened. And as the founder of the GLCPC, the Good Looking Canucks Positivity Club, I need to have hope and have optimism that they will indeed pull off this miracle run. But, let's temper expectations. I'm going to go as a fan, cheer my head off. I'm there with my friend Dan tomorrow night against Calgary. I'm there on Sunday with my lovely wife, Gail, as we were given tickets for making that High Hopes music video that we did at the start of February. All right, Canucks fans, leave a comment below. I love to read, react, and reply as always. Subscribe if you like to. Like this video if you like to. Can't wait. Vancouver, Calgary tomorrow. Vancouver, Columbus on Sunday. And I'm off to Vegas with my family on Monday. But I'll still get my hockey fix in. Going to meet up with Louie Vegas Golden Knights coverage here on YouTube and on Twitter, and it looks like we might get together and even go to the Knights Minnesota Wild game next Friday. And wouldn't it be crazy if the Canucks are basically ready to fight for that last playoff spot, and it goes down to next Friday, and they need Minnesota to lose? That gives me even more reason to cheer for Vegas over Minnesota on that night next Friday. But we got a whole week to get there. We'll see what happens this weekend, and starting tomorrow night, Vancouver against Calgary at Rogers Arena. Have a great day. God bless, and go Canucks go.